when you look back and you see all of these elements with these contract refreshes and all of these things kind of putting in motion and how they set this up. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of discussion some time ago that Warner Brothers was going to get sold. Now, people were talking about, like, David Zaslav was positioning it for sale 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm like, no. He just got in there. He can't even do anything with it for, I think it was in April of this year, that 3-year, that cooling off period for Warner Brothers, I believe, ended. Once that period is up, they can then start potentially soliciting, either for buying big stuff or putting pieces or bits or the whole thing up for sale. Renegade Online. So I want to go back in the time machine here to, I believe, right at, let me get the date, way back, to August 5th. August 5th. As in, 6 weeks ago. Is David Ellison after Warner Brothers next? And we actually talked about this story on Puck. This was from Matt Bellany, I believe, or was this Dylan? No, this is Kim Masters, sorry. As the Paramount Skydance deal finally closes this week, many are wondering what else the young mogul has up his sleeve. Skydance Paramount is still subscale, and David Ellison has access to unlimited capital. Is Warner Brothers in his sights?
As you started going into this, was it my imagination, or did briefly his dad reach the richest man in the world status this past week? I know it was only for an hour, but I think unlimited capital is probably right.
This was the conversation I had this week with Jonas. I said, if you missed the timing of this announcement, because this announcement came basically right within 24 hours of the earnings call at Oracle. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So, but here's the deal. Here's Matt's article from today, or this past Friday, pardon me, September 12, 2025. As Paramount circles Warner Brothers, David Zaslav has been telling friends that he'll only sell on his terms and that the looming offer from the world's richest man will be too low. But with the presumed blessing of Donald Trump, there's not much stopping a deal that David Zaslav can't refuse.
Hey, Val, you ever heard anybody going into negotiations like this say to his buddies, yeah, I'm going to sell this thing low. We're going to get ripped off. I am fully dedicated to. Geez, Louise, how is that news that somebody's saying, yeah, we're gonna negotiate real good on this? Yeah. Of course he's going to say that.
This was the Wall Street Journal article that broke the news. They got the exclusive drop on this. Paramount Skydance prepares a David Ellison-backed bid for Warner Brothers and Larry as well. This is really more about Larry. And then we're going to put the pieces together for you. The majority of the planned bid for Warner Brothers will be made of cash money.
Money.
Not stock, not senior debt, not IOUs, not trust me, bro. Cash money.
Show me the money. Show me the money. Who's got the money? Them Ellison's got the money.
I mean, check this out. Now, this was updated September 12th. I think the original article came out the night before September 11th. Skydance is preparing a majority cash bid offer for WBD, backed by the Ellison family. According to people familiar with the situation, the bid will be for the entire company, including cable networks, movie studios as well. Warner Brothers said late last year it planned to restructure into 2 operating divisions, one focused on legacy cable TV and the other focused on streaming and studios. It's always kind of a hallmark, lets you know that, hey, something's coming. When you see this kind of restructuring, they may be positioning themselves to be snapped up. Warner Brothers had a nearly $33 billion market capitalization early Thursday morning, prior to Wall Street Journal's report on the potential bid. More than double that of Paramount Skydance. A bid hasn't yet been submitted, and the plans could still fall apart. Now, somebody in the audience, one of the Super Chats asked earlier, well, isn't it unusual or isn't it something that the FCC or something would be problematic if you have a smaller company trying to buy out a bigger company? And it was specifically mentioned as the Federal Communications Commission. So let me tell you why there should be no FCC issue here. David Ellison just went through all the stuff he needed to go through with the FCC to get the acquisition of Paramount CBS completed. Warner Brothers has no over-the-air broadcast. Warner Brothers does not own a CBS, an ABC, an NBC, a Fox television. They don't own any of that. They don't even own a CW anymore. Okay, I don't think there's anything left. So there's nothing major that Warner Brothers owns. When you have naught but cable stations, if all you have is HBO and TNT and True TV and Discovery, those are not delivered over the air. Therefore, there is no FCC. There is no Federal Communications Commission. The Federal Communications Commission is the regulatory body that governs the public airwaves. So if you're ABC, if you're CBS, if you're Fox, if you're NBC, Comcast, Universal, you are paying licensing fees to have exclusive access to a certain bandwidth for over-the-air broadcast. Now, granted, probably most people in 2025 are watching those big three or big four that I just mentioned, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, are probably watching them through a cable service or through a streaming service like Hulu or YouTube TV or Roku or Fubo or one of those things. But they are inherently still over-the-air broadcast. They are still antenna. They're out there on the public airwaves. So they are regulated by the FCC. Warner Brothers doesn't have any of those things. Like I said, to my knowledge, I don't think they're still involved in the CW at all. And so that may have been a different entity altogether. And probably if they tried to move the CW, the FCC would be like, oh, so we didn't even know we still had a license out there for that. Nobody watches it. So the point is that the only hurdle they really have to go through is the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. Right? So that's what they're looking at, the Federal Trade Commission. Now, that's the other thing. Go ahead.
Well, the other thing, Valiant, that's unusual about this is usually when you have large media companies, you've got music holdings that can really mess things up. So, we've talked in the past, people will sort of theory craft what company could buy what company. And a lot of times where we'll wind up is we'll say, well, they have this massive music holding. They have this massive music holding. If they combine, it's going to create monopolistic issues. You'll also see that with sports. And that's what ended the sports venture that Disney was attempting to do, a year ago. And so I don't see this. This is one of those very rare situations where I don't see anything that's going to block this.
No, there's nothing. Well, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the legal argument is going to be you let Disney and Fox do it.
Yeah.
And that was way bigger.
Yep.
Way bigger. Here's the thing, and what Pro is saying is correct. When you look at, and I even said, and I mentioned this again at the beginning of the show, I've been saying this for some time. What I thought might be a possibility is once Ellison got control, once Skydance got control of Paramount, that perhaps they would want to spin out CBS. They wouldn't want to deal with linear anymore, and they just wanted the studio library. And that Warner Brothers might be in a very good position by that point to take CBS. And, most importantly, the big fat NFL AFC contract that came along with it. Because, remember, Warner Brothers had just given up the NBA. And I think wisely, considering, Disney is now spending, they're about to go to $2.7 billion a year. I don't think it was a particularly smart move for Comcast either. I'm not just trying to pick on Disney, but $2.7 billion a year for a declining asset.
The NBA is it's not just the WNBA. I mean, the NBA itself is such a diminished brand in comparison to where it was 10 years ago. I mean, just horrific management of that league.
Oh, badly. But you saw it, Disney's response was to start selling off some of its most valuable college football assets. So when they started selling half the college football playoff games, I'm like, that's no accident. And all of a sudden it's like, well, we went from, $700 million a year they were paying for NBA broadcast licensing. And now they're going to 2.4 and they're getting fewer games for 3 times the money. They started selling college football assets.
Now, Valiant, put on your way, way back hat for a minute. You're going to have to remember with me, okay? Mm-hmm. A very long time ago, basically back to the point where you and I had just about started doing shows together and spending time together on YouTube. We had a source back then who was basically at the very top of the toy industry
Yep.
and could give us a lot of information. You humorously called him Deep Toy.
Yes.
Now, Deep Toy years ago informed us that one, Harry Potter, and I don't know if I ever told anybody it was Deep Toy that gave that away to us, but we exclusively reported that the Harry Potter franchise was going to be rebooted, and we told how, and it happened.
Yep.
But they also said that what we were going to see from James Gunn and DC was that they were going to be kind of tepid with their DC movies.
Yep.
They were going to be stalled a little bit.
Yep.
Well, here we are. That's exactly what happened. You know, this lineup has been kind of, people have been saying, you know, why are you launching DC like this?
That's
Well,
it.
if you go back 3-4 years ago to what we reported, they said this would happen, and that the purpose was that whoever bought Warner Brothers, whoever bought DC, would want to come in and have the ability to then navigate that franchise in the direction they wanted. And so James Gunn's job was to come in and kind of almost, you know, do a proof of concept, except it's a real movie. And here we are. I mean, it just flat out came true. So kudos to Deep Toy. We don't talk to Deep Toy anymore. There's not been a falling out. I hope everything's okay. But, you know, you have sources come and go. But I got to give kudos and say, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about being on the money years ago.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I mean, you get a few things announced. You get Superman, you get Supergirl. As far as big theatrical things, I mean, and everything else is kind of left wide open. And it's a start to a franchise. You had a newly reminted DC licensing contract signed in February of this year with Mattel and Warner Brothers. And, you know, and it's like we've been talking about for weeks. I mean, with Superman, it's like, look, no, it didn't make its money back in the box office, but they probably got at least $50-60 million out of the PVOD business. And the signing the contract with Mattel again earlier this year to continue the DC stuff, a lot of that continued contract, and probably, I dare say, in the last, you know, this re-signing, and I think the previous re-signing was 2 years before that in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, also in February. It seems like that Mattel DC contract comes up about every 2 to 3 years. But I'm sure that there was an increase in the demand from Warner Brothers for the licensing fees from Mattel, because they were promising, we've got new movies coming. It's not going to be the old. It's not no more Ezra frickin' Miller that no parent wants their kids to buy or look at or know who he is. You know, we're going to go with a whole new thing on DC. And yeah, they made the new Superman something that was much more appealing to kids, but they probably sold a decent number. So my point is that you had, when you look back and you see all of these elements with these contract refreshes and all of these things kind of putting in motion and how they set this up. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of discussion some time ago that Warner Brothers was going to get sold. Now, people were talking about, like, David Zaslav was positioning it for sale 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm like, no. He just got in there. He can't even do anything with it for, I think it was 2 years, 2.5. I can't remember what the timeline was. But there was something, you know, and I think I said it might have been last year or maybe earlier this year. Yeah, I think it was 3 years. I think it was earlier this year. You know, in April of this year, that 3-year period, that cooling off period for Warner Brothers, I believe, ended. It might have been 2, it might have been 24. I just can't remember right now, guys. We did discuss it. I just don't remember if it was earlier this year or last year. But that cooling off period following that Reverse Morris Trust spinout, you know, they couldn't do anything for a while. So people were talking a couple of years ago about, you know, Warner Brothers was trying to sell itself and all this. I'm like, well, they can't right now. They're prohibited from doing anything. Once that period is up, they can then start potentially soliciting, you know, either for buying big stuff or putting pieces or bits or the whole damn thing up for sale. Now, a lot of this was probably obviously predicated on this Ellison deal going down. And also to what you brought up, let me go ahead and elucidate exactly how this went down in terms of the money side, and I think why this was announced when it was announced. Certainly, there's always a meeting before the meeting, but
as you do, I just want to throw one more point in to really, you know, just add to it. Mm-hmm. In terms of the timing for the Ellisons to get in right now and make this happen, just imagine what they get, the power that they get if they buy now versus next year. If they get in now, mm-hmm. they get a brand new DC universe that they can do whatever they want. They also get a brand new rebooted Harry Potter that they can do anything with. and J.K. Rowling still attached with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why would you ever wait? This is the time. If you want in, there's no better time. It is a giant refresh with some of the biggest properties out there, and they can be the masters of it.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.